Hello and welcome to Movies on the Side. This is Steven Robles.
And this is Nate Baranowski.
And today we are talking about the movie from 2022, the biopic Elvis. That's the whole name of the movie. That's it. Elvis.
By Baz Luhrmann, our guy.
Baz or Boz? I thought it was Baz Luhrmann.
It could be Boz.
Boz.
He's Australian.
Baz.
It feels Boz, right?
Yeah,
Not Baz.
Yeah, I think so. But Austin Butler, Tom Hanks, Helen Thompson, a bunch of big names in here. I want to hit this right off the bat. We need to address something that we've done a long time on this podcast. It's been a long-standing corner, as you would say. We usually open the show with this, and Nate and I have mixed feelings about it. I think maybe you know where I'm going, but we usually talk about the Rotten Tomatoes score, and I ask you to guess what you think it is, and then I'll confirm or say what it was. But do you recall the article I sent you about Rotten Tomatoes? Do you remember this?
Yeah, that it's like a nefarious, Sith-led bullying tactic for marketing campaigns. So what you're saying is you want to kind of uncouple our episodes from Rotten Tomatoes?
Listen, I'm not trying to be on a high horse or even a low horse. I don't even like to ride horses.
No, we can be on a high horse. We can be on a high horse.
You be on the high horse. I'll be in the side coat. Is there a side, like, a motorcycle, you have like the side?
Yeah, exactly.
So do they have that for horses?
Yeah, I mean, how about a little smaller horse you can ride next to it? Like
I don't think a smaller horse is going to do well with me. I think I need a carriage.
How about a baby elephant?
I'll do a medium-sized elephant. Not as big as the one that Legolas took down, but
I'll ride the horse.
You ride the horse.
You sit in the carriage in the back that my horse is pulling.
I'll sit in the carriage. Yeah, I like that. I'll do that. I'll say, yeah. You ride the horse.
No, you can't say yeah because I'm riding the horse in front. So please do not whip me, nor do anything to startle the man riding the horse.
Anyway, I don't know if we should uncouple ourselves from Rotten Tomatoes. Basically, long story short, Rotten Tomatoes is still like a big thing in Hollywood. Like, viewers will go to Rotten Tomatoes on opening weekend of a movie and be like, oh, it's got 77% Rotten Tomatoes from critics, which is what this says. Like, oh, it's probably good, we should go see it. Apparently the system is gamed a lot, and studios, maybe even like other actors, will literally find critics that are still count for the critic score of Rotten Tomatoes, but are just lesser known and are maybe easily swayed by things, that they'll just put a bunch of high scores in there initially so the movie can have like a boost opening weekend, and then they don't really care what happens long term after that. That's why sometimes you see that score vary widely from the beginning to the end. So I don't know, I feel like Rotten Tomatoes is like maybe not the thing anymore.
Good, because I have something to fill it in right away.
Oh, perfect.
You plucked the Rotten Tomatoes out of the ground. I'm about to plant a new tree. You ready?
Oh, so many analogies. Yes, please.
Here is our new segment.
Okay.
Before we talk about this movie, I want to ask you, going into this movie, what were your preconceived notions about it? So I want from a 0 to 5, just how we do our rating at the end.
Yeah.
I want you to do a rating of like excitement level going into seeing it, because I like to see, or like expectation level before starting. Because I want to see where we start
and where we end up.
Where we finish.
This is good. Okay. So I want to say the last biopic I had seen was, I think, Rocket Man. And that was with Taron Egerton. Was this also Baz Luhrmann?
No.
No, that was Dexter Fletcher as the director.
No.
Okay. So
Baz has done Australia, which we have done on this show with Hugh Jackman in one of the top Henley performances of all time.
It's Academy
Moulin
Award
Rouge, a movie close to our hearts and our singing brains.
Yes.
The Romeo and Juliet with
gift is my song. And this one's for you. Sorry, I said it was going to be a singing episode. So anyway, yeah, okay.
And also Romeo and Juliet with Leonardo DiCaprio. Did you ever see that one?
Yes,
I did.
I did.
He also directed that one.
I think I saw that in school. Actually, I feel like they rolled in the TV. For
that was the Romeo and Juliet.
Cool. Look,
hey kids, you guys like Leonardo DiCaprio?
Yeah, you've seen him.
You all saw your parents' VHS version of Titanic while they slept.
Exactly. So I like Baz Luhrmann. I've liked all his past work. So I was excited for it. Tom Hanks is always a good show. But I also knew, I didn't know the Elvis story. But I had an expectation, this is going to be sad and or rough. I knew drugs were part of the picture. And I honestly had no idea about, Tom Hanks's character in real life. Like this is, very, I think, close-ish to Elvis's life. It's a biopic, but so I was like not really sure about it, but I was hesitant. So I didn't see it right away because I was like, this is going to be heavy. I knew it was going to be heavy. I'm sure it was going to be good, but heavy. So I was like, going in, I would have said like 3. Like this is a 3 movie. That's the context I have. What about you?
Yeah, I was also kind of balanced on this because one, I wanted to, I've been loving his stuff, but
for sure
it's a long one, and I knew it was going to be a long one because our boy Boz does not mess around with movies that don't take you on a journey.
That's your kid's
like
book.
Australia felt like it was like 4 hours. 4 hours of like, hey, you want to let's go all the way in. It's got like a 3-part act to it.
You're going to see Hugh Jackman in a Henley for 3 hours nonstop.
I don't mind.
I'll take it.
I don't
mind. Not at all. Let's do it.
Okay. So, but I didn't have a whole lot of interest in Elvis, the person. Like, I knew the songs. Right. I owned a karaoke machine in the mid-90s. That definitely had Hound Dog. Like, I knew his music, but I didn't know much about him. Except I remember as a kid there was a clock that someone had on their wall. I don't even know where it was, but it was like a family friend, and they had a clock, and Elvis's arms were the minute and the hour hand.
Wow.
And they spun around with the time, and his hips were the metronome. And so his hips would go left and right, tick with the seconds as his hands went around. That was my impression. You got to go find the image.
We have to put an explicit tag on this episode now because you said his hips were the seconds and they're just going back and forth.
Yep, his hips were the metronome. Anyway, so I'm going to say I kind of had a lower. I went 2 kind of going into it. I wanted to see it, but I almost wanted to see it as like, I'm going to like this probably. But I don't really care. Like, it took me a while to actually see it. Like, I just finished it, like, yesterday.
Yeah, it took me a while to gin it up. Now, so my history with Elvis is almost nothing. Like, I really didn't know much about him. But my very first musical, Nate, my very first musical. Did I ever tell you this? Ever tell you this story?
I don't know.
My 8th grade year in junior high school, it was the first musical I was ever in, and it was Bye Bye Birdie. And I was Conrad Birdie. How I landed that role as my debut musical
Charisma.
role.
Riz, I would say, right?
I had 0 riz at any point in school. I was literally wearing Hawaiian shirts 5 days a week to junior high. No idea how I managed this, but I was Conrad Birdie.
Wait. Stop.
Yes.
Tell me why Hawaiian shirts. Just pause. Tell me about what was your psyche?
I felt comfortable in them and thought they looked good. I learned years later that everyone thought I looked crazy, but I rocked them even into freshman year of high school. Hawaiian shirts. Must have been
like a piece of media that you saw at some point in time that you said like Hawaiian shirts? Or?
I think I saw it in a store one time and I was like, look at that. Look, palm trees.
This man named Tommy Bahama is
silky material.
A genius.
Like the material was so different than other shirts. I was like, this is wonderful. Like this is
wearing bowling shirts to school every day.
I literally kid you not. It was Hawaiian shirts many days of the week.
Like big floral prints we're talking.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like
ferns,
blue waves and palm trees and then all their big floral ones. You
weren't even in Florida yet.
I wasn't even
in Florida. I just realized this.
No, I was in New York. I was in upstate New York wearing Hawaiian shirts to junior high, and somehow I was Conrad Birdie.
Good.
That's
good.
I don't know, Nate. I don't even know my life trajectory. I don't know how these things happen. So,
do you own a Hawaiian shirt now?
No, I don't know. No,
like a full-on Hawaiian shirt.
I got to get one now. I think I should get a Hawaiian shirt.
I'm talking big old flowers like magnolias, hibiscus flowers.
I mean, I would rock it now because I careth not what others might think as I go to Target and look for my Stanley
We've talked in a
cup.
previous episode about our levels of self-confidence and caring what others think. And we are at a good inflection point.
Can I tell you, Nate? This is slightly off topic. It has to do with our appearance. So I have a YouTube channel, and I have a couple videos that have done very well recently. And it was one of the first times where I've gotten comments on my appearance, namely my haircut. And for some reason, people felt the need to comment on my haircut, which I thought was interesting. Negative comments, and I was like, "This is a new experience." All dudes, of course. They were just like, ridiculous haircuts. So I was like, you know what?
No one slid into your DMs.
I'm going to keep my whatever haircut people think this is, get a big Hawaiian shirt, and I'm going to be good to go.
There you go.
I'll do the videos in the Hawaiian shirt. Anyway,
You're all set. I can't believe you're big enough now to get trolled.
I've been trolled. It's an honor, really. It's an accomplishment.
Mm-hmm.
I feel good about it. So, Conrad Birdie, what I was told back then in junior high school was, this is like an Elvis character. Like Conrad Birdie is an Elvis, archetype. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. I have zero idea who that is. I have no idea who Elvis Presley is.
Who's
I've never
Elvis?
heard. I have no idea.
The Pharaoh in Joseph, Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat? Yes, that one.
Yeah.
That was closer to me knowing about Elvis than it was to
Right.
actually knowing Elvis.
So I had no idea, and I really don't think I did much research even then in junior high. So that was my first experience. No idea. I was supposed to emulate him, and I had no idea, a lot of charisma, whatever. So that was my first experience. And then my son Jordan actually did Elvis as a presentation for school one time, and he dressed up as Elvis, and he learned how to do the ho, and that was really cool. So that was it. That was my experience with Elvis. But I knew that Elvis not only was the king of rock and roll, that's what he was called, but I knew Elvis was the impetus for many other kinds of music, and was kind of like the 12-bar blues. That was Elvis's thing. And I know jazz was before that and all that kind of stuff, but this mix of blues and rock and roll, I knew Elvis was a big part of that, and his music changed and affected music for years to come. So that's what I knew. That's all.
Right.
What about you?
I think a few years ago, while living in Chicago and learning a little bit more about blues and learning it was kind of told to me in a not a dismissive way, but hey, Elvis gets a lot of credit for basically taking black artists' songs and just being a white artist who just brought it to everyone.
Right.
And this movie sort of, for the most part, posits it as Elvis was doing some really loved the art form, loved gospel, rhythm and blues, and made him happy, and he brought it to everyone. I guess on the less generous side, it could be he sort of whitewashed it to maybe a country that wasn't ready to embrace a non-white artist singing at that point. So there's a little bit of history behind it that is fascinating. I'd love to learn more about. I'm very, very music styles naive. I really don't know about the history of music. I had heard of B.B. King. I knew a few artists here and there, but I was widely not knowledgeable about any of this.
Right. So he was born in 1935. So early-ish 1900s. I also knew that he obviously the shaking of the hips, which was his big shtick live on stage. I knew whatever movements he was doing on stage was largely everyone over the age of 30 or 40 was this is of the devil, literally calling it the devil, his movements, all of that.
But we sat in a strange point because at least my parents and their generation sort of looked at Elvis with a smile of oh, it turns out he wasn't he didn't corrupt the nation in this way. But my grandparents' generation, I remember getting a few things about Elvis, but it was a mix because Elvis was around in my life. The songs were here and there, and I think we had an Elvis Christmas record in my house growing up.
Right.
He was around, and I had seen part of my Elvis past is I had seen some of his movies. So a big what's Turner Classic? What did it used to? AMC used to just be old movies way back before they got cool Walking Dead shows. But yeah, I had seen a few of them, and it's here's a guy who can't help but just start busting out into song in his movies, and so they just felt popcorny things.
And we watched, when my son was doing that presentation, we watched videos of Elvis doing the jailhouse rock or whatever, and we saw this stuff, and honestly seeing the movie and how he was seeing what the show would have been in Las Vegas, which again, again, Baz Luhrmann does amazing at this kind of thing, this
Spectacle.
live performance spectacle.
Yes.
And like, surely it was a spectacle when Elvis was alive and we're actually doing this. And like, oh yeah, this would have been like an amazing thing to see. This would have been just a huge experience. And it was funny. I was in Las Vegas a few months ago, back in March, and there's like statues of Elvis randomly because that's where he was for many years.
He was.
Statue. Yeah, he was just there.
But here's I had a huge gap in my knowledge of Elvis between I knew that Elvis did these songs. I knew he was young and in these movies that I saw. And then I knew of the Elvis impersonator Elvis with the really long sideburns and like the guy who comes to do an Elvis impersonator at some like school event or something, and the big like cape and all like the glitter
the big cape,
but I didn't see how those connected, but I knew he went from one to the other.
Right.
But when people did Elvis impersonations, it was always the latter. It was always
but I
that
also,
guy.
which I just remembered the big song in Bye Bye Birdie. It was, you gotta be sincere. You gotta be sincere. I don't remember the whole thing, but anyway, that was the big song I sang. That was. And you have to run across the stage, and the girls are like fainting or whatever. It's funny. This is going to sound weird, but I kind of want to start at the end of this movie because at the very end of this movie, they actually show a clip from Elvis's. I think it's his final performance. He's like on stage in the stadium.
2 weeks before he died.
2 weeks before he died, but he does this performance, and they just kind of let it play, just him singing. And if anything, this movie helped me understand, like, he was a musician. Like, this man, like, he could sing. And, like, he had a musical mind. And, like, even in that clip at the very end of the movie, like, I was moved. I was like, oh, my goodness. Like, when he performed, and I think that's one of the things this movie does really well and I enjoyed seeing, and kudos to Austin Butler in his performance, when Elvis performed, like, he put it all there. Like, he was performing. Like, he was not phoning it in. And he was doing it. Yes, I think he loved, obviously, the attention, and that becomes problematic. But I do think he just loved the music. Like, he just loved to do it. And seeing him at the piano, even, like, not looking great because drugs or whatever, like, he does not look good.
Right.
But singing, like, 110%, just playing, like, his heart out, I was like, oh, wow. This guy was actually, like, the deal. Like, it wasn't just hype. Like, it wasn't because there was just no one else around. Like, this guy actually had talent and skill.
Super talented, right.
Like, oh, wow. And so that, if anything, it gave me an appreciation for, like, him as a musician, a person, like, his history and, like, how he played into the zeitgeist for the years and decades following. So I appreciate it for that.
Right. He has been so cartoonified.
I was just going to say cartoonized, yeah.
That's what it is. Actually seeing, like, the real person and seeing, like, wow, like, the guy can also, like, belt it. He can really, like...
Yeah, he just belts it.
He can really do it.
It's like, wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. I love when these type of movies, same thing for Rocket Man, humanize the person's life.
Yes.
Because it is so easy to just be like, yeah, Elton John, just like you see, like, the superstar.
Whatever. Yeah.
Elvis, the king, like they just become icons, and you lose, and unfortunately, they become icons that are then like, yeah, and he did a lot of drugs, like that was his downfall, kind of thing. But and
it's
it's embarrassing to say, like, I never thought to myself, I don't wonder why he did a lot of drugs. Like, how this came to be, how someone who seemingly had everything that, quote unquote, the world could offer him.
Right.
And so starting from that point, I will say that the scene of him meeting with Priscilla in the car and the scene with her leaving him in the house, of her just being like, I have just wanted a husband, and Lisa Marie wants a dad, and you're not able to do any of that, was heartbreaking.
It was.
To see. It was to think this guy had, and even now, like, even people who would cartoonify him would say, like, he's one of the most influential musicians of the last 100 years.
Right.
And like,
absolutely,
it said in like the card at the end, one of the highest selling solo artists ever. And like all of that. And then you go back to, but he didn't, like, his life ended very, very sad. He lost like the person who knew him best.
Yeah.
And like kind of he sings that song all the time. I'm caught in a can, I can't walk out.
Yes.
Or whatever. I caught in a caught in a what?
Oh,
I'm caught in a.
that's so. You sound so good doing it. I'm looking.
I can't go. And there's a part where
Caught in a trap,
goes
right?
over.
Caught in a trap.
Yeah, trap.
Yes,
I'm caught in a trap.
Oh.
I can't go back.
So real.
That
like, he was so real.
Was so like
real.
he truly was. It seemed like Vegas was like his cage. That
well, okay.
His manager was like, "Stay here."
This is okay. This like Tom Hanks.
Partly of his own doing as well, but yes.
Partly of his own doing, but Tom Hanks, who plays Colonel Tom Parker, who was an actual part of Elvis's real life, like true story, being his manager, basically did him dirty.
Did not enjoy that voice. Did not enjoy that voice. I don't know if that was his real voice, but I did not enjoy it. Maybe I'm not supposed to, but
like at the beginning,
the snowman. Make it
at the
snow.
beginning, you think, okay, this guy has Elvis's. Maybe he's trying to help him succeed. Obviously, he's riding on the coattails, but he's also helping Elvis out. And then, as the movie progresses, and you see him like get into gambling debt, and so he makes deals with the La Vegas hotel to lock Elvis in for years of a contract. And then, like the internet, like I cannot tell you, I don't know why, but there was a part in this, I guess, in the real life Elvis and in this movie, where he wanted to go on an international tour. It was going to be his first time like touring around the world, and it was Colonel Tom Parker that like basically didn't want him to do it, not because he said like it's not safe or whatever, but it's because he wanted him at the hotel because the hotel was going to give Colonel Tom Parker a kickback if Elvis stayed. And I was like, this dude ruined Elvis's opportunity to actually tour around the world, where he probably would have had like Michael Jackson level crowds like internationally, which like we have scenes of Michael Jackson in like Budapest or whatever with like crazy crowds. We never get that from Elvis because he didn't have the opportunity to, and because of this guy. And I gotta tell you, Tom Hanks, like in Cloud Atlas, he makes you mad. He's frustrating because he's actually the bad guy there. But this might be one of his best bad guy roles because I just could not stand him, and I was so angry at that character, which I guess the real person too, like eventually, or in real life. But it was just wild, and I was like yelling. I didn't actually yell at the screen, but just like in my mind, like, stop listening to this guy. Like, please fire this guy. Don't listen to him anymore. It was so sad.
He's got his. I don't know who Jerry is in his life, but he has like the one guy who's like, hey, this like
it's a parasite. The guy's a parasite.
This is something that I think knocks this movie down a little bit. Not because it's the movie's fault, but when you know how it ends, and when you know he doesn't really like it, it's not a happy ending for Elvis. Like I knew,
right?
It's hard to be like I'm cheering for him to like have things better with his family and like get what he really wants out of life, but knowing like what starts so beautiful, like his first show at International is like really set up as like, wow, like these two, Vegas and Elvis, are made for each other. This is ultimate spectacle and like a killer performance. But all of a sudden that thing is like, oh no.
And which, can I just say, after being in Vegas for the first time, and maybe the last, I would not want to be locked there. I would not want to be there for years and years, literally living in a hotel. Like, Elvis lived in a hotel. Like, no, I'm good. And like, Colonel Tom Parker literally had like a doctor with drugs on hand to be able to get Elvis back into performing like status. And it's like, wow, this is rough.
Yeah.
So anyway, end of his life was rough, and also the middle of his life. Let's be honest. Like, that was all That was all rough.
Now we go all the way back.
As we
keep going backwards.
Yes,
I think this early to early half of the movie was really riveting for me.
Mm-hmm.
I think seeing young Elvis and the sort of rise of his stardom and sort of the very strange and kind of creepy relationship with his mom and like that whole family dynamic.
Strange.
All was like, I couldn't look away. Like it all felt like, what is this?
This is not
what is
good.
happening here?
Yes, something is weird. Yeah.
I would say, and I can't speak to the actual version, like the real version of the song, but him walking through Beale Street and them cutting Hound Dog with another song, I think by Doja Cat as the artist behind it, and like modern rap pulled on top of him as he like slow motion walks through Beale Street.
Yes.
Very cool. Like
that was very cool.
Like COOL, cool scene.
That was very cool. I also, you know, when he went into the studio to record, those were always very like exciting moments. Like it was like, oh man, like, and again, like he pours it all out. Like he pours passion into that. And I did love that kind of initial scene. He might be a kid, I think, but he discovers basically like the gospel tent meeting.
Right.
And he goes in there and he hears this music, and it's like, I love this moment because it's a moment like I want for all of my kids, and I think maybe they've had some of these moments already where they hear something, a sound, a type of music, a genre for the first time, and then like it just literally opens your mind to say, I didn't even know this was possible.
Right.
I didn't know that things could sound like this, and now I want to do it. Like seeing that moment portrayed in this movie was cool, but I think it just makes it it's so real, because especially when it comes to music, like that's what I want. You know, I want all my kids to be able to hear something and be like, I didn't even know that was possible, and it's wonderful, and I want that.
I will give you two examples of when that has happened in my own life, and I'd like you to think about when that has happened in yours. Because I have two very specific and very opposite things. The very first time, as a relatively young kid, I went to a concert, or not a concert, like a fair or something with my family. And I heard for the first time a man play a banjo. And I remember thinking, how is he able to make so much sound with his fingers? It felt impossible that he could. And I was like, how are you even able to play that? I was transfixed by, I think it was a small enough sort of venue that I was able to go up and see the banjo afterwards, because I was like, there's got to be more to it than like, I've heard a guitar played, but how can this sound come out of this thing? And I loved it. It felt like the most technically like amazing thing that I had heard. So that's one.
Oh, it's so good.
The other thing was, I believe, around early college time, and this was hearing dubstep for the first time and learning what a drop was. And I remember that whole, like, the very first time that I heard a like a
it was pretty satisfying,
and like that in a loud sense, like it has kind of been like laughed at as a music form now, later as a genre. But when I first heard it, in all of its like overwhelming sound thing of this, it's all meant to lead to a drop that is supposed to just be like blowing you away with bass and sound, a wall of sound coming towards you. I thought, I have never heard anything like this before. So those are two very different times for me.
Bro, I'm so glad you asked this question. This was such a good thing to talk about. While you were talking, I have four come to mind. So I want to share all four.
You got to go. You
quickly.
do find the two best ones, or the go fast with them.
I'll go fast. When I was in college, someone showed me the Bela Fleck and the Flecktones with Victor Wooten on bass. Their like DVD live from the Quick. I didn't even know a bass could sound like that. And Bela Fleck plays the banjo. Didn't know banjo could sound like that. It was amazing. Played electric banjo. It was nuts. That was awesome. Trumpet wise, the first time I heard Maynard Ferguson and Chris Bodie, I then proceeded to see them live in concert at the Blue Note. Maynard Ferguson just plays like these super high notes, just screaming. I was like, I didn't know this was possible. I love it. And then Chris Bodie, just his smooth sound was amazing. But the two also in college, these both happened my freshman year. One was I went to a friend's dorm room, and he put on the Dave Matthews Live in Central Park DVD. And I had never heard Dave Matthews. I also really didn't hear much of any pop music before college because, pretty sheltered. And so I was like, whoa, this drummer is amazing. Like this violin dude is like going crazy. Like I don't even know what's happening. I just love all of it. And so that kind of blew my mind. I don't listen to any Dave Matthews now because whatever, but it blew my mind at the time.
Right.
But then the other one though that I really felt like the moment Elvis had in here, and like I have to preface this by saying like kids don't listen to this until we talk about it. But it is my freshman year. TJ Shirley, he was like, "Have you ever heard of Maroon 5?" And I was like, "I don't know what you're talking about." And so he played. I think we sat in his truck, and he played Maroon 5 "Songs About Jane," that album. And like,
yes, I know the album.
I was like, my mind opened.
You just listened to it front to back?
I feel like we must have listened to like 4 to 5 tracks in a row.
Yes. And
I was just like, what is this? Like, it just sounded amazing to me. Like, it was funky, and just like hearing the different instruments and Adam Levine singing, I was like, this is wonderful. Like, this is amazing. Like, how can I listen to more of this? And so that was like, I don't know. It changed just my perspective. Like, it was just wonderful. So those are my moments.
Yeah. I will add to just also my intro into rap music also came later due to my sheltered past. But that was a time where I think because of sports, I realized that like, hold on a second. Here's a genre of music that sort of gets me like amped up in a way I've never had another type of music at that point. I mean, like, this gives me like, I feel competitive. Like a drive. I remember.
Talk about power.
Hey, Robles kids. Hey, Robles kids. Don't listen to this song until you talk to your dad.
I don't even know.
But I remember the song. Remember the name. That the 15%, 5%. 100% reason to remember the name. Okay. It has that song. If you, I mean, I don't know how much editing you're going to do with this, but that intro to that song has like one of those. Oh, I feel like I can run through a brick wall, and I've never had music make me feel so like. I'm ready to grind. I'm ready to do whatever it takes. Okay. I'm like, let's go. Like, I will climb this mountain now. And that was like, for me, music has always been about like the emotions that go with it, like of how it makes me feel. And so that was like a new emotion.
That's really good. That's good. Well,
okay.
I don't know what to say about this movie. Yeah, I mean,
okay. Here's what I want to say.
Yeah,
I think it's beautifully done.
It's a great movie.
I think this movie is beautifully done. Yeah. This movie is long.
It's 2 hours, 38 minutes.
This movie is long.
It feels like 4 hours long.
It feels like, yes. It feels very, very long. Because it takes you through a man's life.
Yeah, like
literally from
life.
like kid to death. Like, and basically, it is like all there.
At the 30 to 40 minute mark, it's just kind of hard. Like, everything is just hard and not great.
Right.
So,
but it has done something beautiful, which is it makes me care posthumously about Elvis.
Yeah.
Like, I care about this guy who I have never met, who was never alive when I was alive, but I think like, oh man, that's a bummer. Also, great musician, and I think that's a noble thing for a movie to do. Other than like, it's definitely entertaining at times and interesting and sad. Right. But it made me care about Elvis, which is something that I had never done personally before.
And it must be the purpose. I mean, like when we did we talk about Rocket Man on this podcast?
Yeah, I think so.
I think we did. We reviewed it, but we both watched it. Yeah, and like that movie, I knew some of Elton John's songs. I didn't really know much about him. Like seeing that movie, it again like gave a new appreciation. Like, oh, and he's still alive, so you can like actually appreciate him while he still lives. But you're like, oh my goodness. Well, he's actually an incredible musician. You know, I feel like a lot of times we see these big celebrities and we're like, oh, they must have like achieved this through some back channels, or they can't really be that talented. And it's like, no, actually, these people got famous because they are talented. Like, it helps answer that question. And maybe that's not always the case, but for Elton John, that was the case. And like seeing that, and now with Elvis, like, oh, a new appreciation. Like, he cared about the music. He cared about what he was singing. Like, he wasn't just like doing jokey music, even though that's kind of how it portrays, like Elvis impersonators or whatever. Like, he actually cared about the music. He was legitimately a great musician and singer. And yeah, there were mistakes made along the way. And he had like terrible people like Colonel Tom Parker around him, like not making it easy. But like he was someone to be respected, at least in the aspects that he was a great musician and performer for his time. So yeah,
it really made me look back and think like, man, we get reminded all over and over again, but like the amount of money that he brought in for himself and the people around him, probably ludicrous amounts, just like amazing amounts.
Yes,
and like all of that.
Can't even
hill of beans. Hill of beans.
Hill of beans, and also Colonel Tom Parker just completely ruined everything.
It does make me, if I'm ever near Graceland, I would be more tempted to swing by now.
Yeah, I'd be tempted to swing by. Maybe
I assume they filmed parts in, or maybe they set up a set similar to it.
Maybe. I mean, I assume it would be pretty easy to film there. I mean, just so like nothing good really happened in there. I don't know. I mean, some good maybe, but I don't know. But anyway, how would we rate this movie? So I said a 3 at the beginning. What did you say?
Yep.
2? You were going with a 2?
It was a 2 going into it.
I mean, I'll give this movie a 4. A 4 biopic. It's again, it's a hard watch, but it's still like you appreciate it, and like it's engrossing and engaging, and you learn about Elvis, and Baz Luhrmann knows what he's doing with these biopics. So I'll give it a 4.
Yeah.
What do you say?
I think I'm going to give it a 4 as well.
Yeah.
I actually think this is a movie. I mean, it's on Prime. So if you have...
Oh, there you go.
If you have Prime, it's on there. You can just watch it.
If it's on Prime, Native will tell you.
Yeah, it is. It is. And so I would say this is a movie that I would recommend to most people to watch. I think it's a good movie.
Sure.
I would recommend that people give it a try. You will know after 30 minutes if this is your jam or not.
Sure.
And if it's not, you don't have to watch the other 2 hours and 20 minutes of it or whatever. So
yeah, you could just hang out.
You just keep going for it. It's definitely a ride. It's a ride through it. I would say Australia is still probably my favorite Baz movie.
See,
but
Moulin,
I mean, like this one and Moulin. I haven't seen Moulin Rouge in a while, so
that's
rose-colored glasses and all. But
exactly, that's why I'm a little like I would say Moulin Rouge would be my favorite, but I haven't seen it in a while. Like I've seen Australia more recently than, and that was like 2 or 3 years ago, so I haven't seen it in a while. But Ewan McGregor and Nicole Kidman, I'm just saying, they were good. It's good.
They're good. Not a whole
movie.
lot of like romance in this one. I mean, I think their relationship is important, but it's more about the breaking of Priscilla and Elvis and his fame.
Yeah, the Elephant Love medley from Moulin Rouge is so good. I used to listen to that on repeat. But anyway, and then I would play Lady Marmalade, and I would blast it in my Toyota Echo until the speakers distorted. That was anyway.
That's a good musical moment in the life, and a little learning of French.
This is exactly. Ooh, I'm not going to do it now. Listen, listeners and viewers, what you should do right now is go to patreon.com/moviesontheside, or you can support us directly on Apple Podcasts. We recorded, I think, a full-on 40-minute bonus episode, an incredible adventure, me finding a Stanley Cup. That sounds boring. That was not a good selling pitch. But it was
you
very
said
exciting.
Stanley Cup, which is the trophy in hockey, which sounded it's not that. It's not a Stanley Cup.
It's not that. It's not that.
It is a Stanley Cup.
That is right. It was that, and I forgot what to talk about. But it was very good. It was a good bonus episode. You just listen to it. You can access all the bonus episodes when you support the show over there.
It went off the rails.
Yeah. It went off the rails. Links are in the episode description if you want to do that. And then, as we always say,
wise men say,
bring a tear to my eye.
Only fools rush in, but I can't
thought about being an Elvis impersonator? Taking that?
You ain't no other motorhome, crying all the time. No, I haven't until right now.
Until right now, that's pretty good.